Hello and thank you for joining us on the news on NTA International. I am Lami Ali. Let's take the headlines. Activities marking the 2021 Armed Forces Remembrance Day comes to a close with the symbolic laying of wreaths. National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC, says no COVID-19 vaccine approval yet in Nigeria. Also on the news, U.S. President-elect Joe Biden unveils $1.9 trillion coronavirus stimulus package. Activities marking the 2021 Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebrations formally came to a close nationwide with the symbolic wreath-laying ritual as the cenotaph of the unknown soldier in Abuja, the nation's capital. The epoch-making and solemn occasion, presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari, took place at the National Arcade. State House correspondent Adamu Sambu has the details.
The Armed Forces Remembrance Day celebration is an annual event set aside to honor the nation's fallen heroes who sacrificed their lives during the World Wars, the Nigerian Civil War, as well as the various peacekeeping and internal security operations. This year's ritual is particularly significant as it coincides with the massive onslaught against terrorism, insurgency, and other criminal activities in parts of the country. In the last 7 days, for instance, over 110 terrorists were neutralized and nearly 400 livestock recovered in various military operations. The need to appreciate the contributions of the troops towards the restoration of normalcy in troubled spots as well as protection of the nation's territorial integrity is therefore of great importance. Laying of the wreath at the cenotaph of the unknown soldier by President Muhammadu Buhari was indeed the climax of the solemn commemorative activities kicked off in October last year. The president was joined by Vice President Yemi Oshibanjo, Senate President Ahmed Lawan, Speaker Femi Bajabiamila of the House of Representatives, Chief Justice of Nigeria, as well as Ministers of Defense and the FCT. There were also the Chief of Defense Staff, Service Chiefs, and the Inspector General of Police, as well as representatives of the Diplomatic Corps, the Nigerian Legion, and widows of the fallen heroes. Special prayers were offered for the repose of the souls of the departed soldiers, as well as peace, unity, stability, and prosperity of the country.
Lord God, bless and protect our government and political leaders at all levels. Reward their struggle with great success for us all.
بين القوات المسلحة النيجيرية والإرهابيين في شمال الشرق النيجيري.
Grant unto us who are alive grace, courage, and determination to keep the flag of selfless service to our fatherland flying.
At the launch of the Armed Forces Remembrance Day Emblem and Appeal Fund last October, President Muhammadu Buhari made a strong case for Nigerians to desist from actions and comments that are inimical to the stability and prosperity of Nigeria. He said Nigeria's unity has been achieved at great cost and must therefore be guarded jealously by all, as the strength of the nation lies in her diversity. In Abuja, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Today's Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which has been marked with an elaborate ceremony at the National Remembrance Arcade, Abuja. Defense correspondent Najar Atu-Tijani brings us highlights of the ceremony.
The Order of the Federal Republic.
When the president lays the wreath, it is termed a most solemn ceremony in observance of the National Remembrance Day, more solemn than other wreath-laying ceremonies by other dignitaries. The general salute used to welcome the President, the Chief of Defense Staff and other service chiefs, as well as other dignitaries, is another military tradition. It is a mark of respect accorded to high-ranking officers and other dignitaries. A unique type of salute is the respect that is rendered over a grave by a military honor guard. Originally, 3 rifle volleys were fired into the air over the grave of a fallen soldier. This custom may well have originated as a perceived need to scare away evil spirits escaping from the dead. Today, the homage and respect displayed at military funerals is a visible final tribute to those individuals who have served their country. The Unknown Soldier is a monument dedicated to the services of an unknown soldier. It symbolizes the common memories of all soldiers killed in war. The réveil, le réveil in French, is a bugle or trumpet call, chiefly used to wake military personnel at sunrise. The name comes from réveil, the French word for wake up. Another interpretation of the call is that one day the soldiers will rise again. There are many more symbols which are part of military tradition, but these are the ones which are apt for this occasion of the Armed Forces Remembrance Day. Naja'atu Tijani, NTA News.
And I'm being joined in the studio by National Coordinator and retired member of Nigerian Armed Forces, Abuja Jurowaye Herbert, to speak more on the Armed Forces Remembrance Day. So you're welcome to the studios of NTA International.
Thank you for having me.
Now, tell us how significant is this Remembrance Day to the Nigerian Armed Forces and the nation at large?
Well, today, as you are all aware, it's a yearly ritual when our colleagues, the fallen heroes, are being remembered, as well as those of us that are still surviving. Having said that, I want to seize this opportunity to congratulate my colleagues, those of us that are still alive, and also sympathize with the widows and the orphans. It has not been easy, but we have to give God the thanks.
Now, it's a day to remember our fallen heroes. Would you say the objectives of the days has been achieved over the years that this occasion is being celebrated?
Well, I wouldn't say so, because to be honest with you, we still have a long way to go in terms of the welfare of the fallen heroes, the widows of the fallen heroes, as well as those of us that are still living. As we speak today, I was at the arcade, I was at the wreath laying ceremony, and looking at the widows, I was so saddened by the fact that they'll have to live the rest of their lives, and contend with the hardship without their spouses. So I want to also say here that government must look inward and see how they can, assist these widows and the orphans to get along in this harsh economical condition in the country.
You've talked about some issues that you feel strongly need to be addressed. Now, as an expert, we want you to give us your suggestion on how the Nigerian Armed Forces can improve generally.
First and foremost, my appeal will go to the president, who happens to be one of us. There are several welfare issues that are still being looked into, and they are taking longer than we expect. Take, for instance, we know what the situations are now, and of course, in 2019 April, there was a review of minimum wage, and as I speak today, it has not yet been implemented, for the veterans to benefit. So it has taken like 21 months after the approval was given by Mr. President. And we go to the same market. And I keep saying it, that if there's one segment of the society that must not be taken for granted, it is this people, this set of people who take their lives to make this country one united, indivisible entity. But unfortunately, as we have it today, we are still far from, paying these people what they actually, suffered for.
We thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you very much.
I've been speaking with Abiodun Herbert, a member of the retired Armed Forces, Nigerian Armed Forces, on the Nigerian Armed Forces Remembrance Day. Now, we're going to take a very short clip that has been packaged specially in honor of our fallen heroes. We salute the courage and sacrifice of our fallen heroes. To other news now. ECOWAS Parliament has adopted the $398.04 million draft consolidated budget of ECOWAS presented to plenary by the Administration and Finance Department of ECOWAS Commission. The adoption follows deliberations and defense by institutions and departments of the ECOWAS Commission on NTA Fine Phase reports.
Of the ECOWAS budget continued with debates centered on creating a balance between the contribution of member states and siting of projects, as well as the implementation of community levy.
There are countries which do not contribute and receive much more from the community. So sooner or later, the parliament and the community and all the institutions are going to have problems. They will be facing difficulties.
That every country, member nation should go back and ensure the community levy is collected as supposed to be done, or remitted. Remittance should be done, how remittance should be done.
I think that it is very important for every MP in his own country, for all projects that are initiated, that they be called to task to keep an eye on the project and report to the ECOWAS Parliament.
Secretary General of the Parliament, John Azuma, presented the draft resolution of the plenary committee on the budget for adoption by the House.
Article 1 gives a favorable opinion on the adoption of the draft 2021 consolidated community budget balanced in revenue and then expenditure to a total amount of UA 398,044,626 units of accounts.
I thank the Secretary General, the Special Rapporteur, as well as all MPs for the work done, which enabled us to adopt the draft consolidated community budget for year 2021 in record time. Honorable members, the debate is closed. The draft resolution is hereby the plenary for adoption. Thank you very much. The draft resolution is adopted.
The resolution adopting the budget will be presented to the President of the ECOWAS Commission for onward transmission to the Chairman of Council. On NTA Fine Face, NTA News.
You're watching the news on NTA International. Time now for a short break. More reports when we return.
Latest entrant, latest technology. Welcome to Intel 4G LTE Advanced and experience super fast internet access today. Visit intel.com.ng or any of our stores in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt to get started. Intel. Live more.
Thank you for joining us again. World leaders have resolved to work together to restore degraded lands, promote biological diversity, as well as create green jobs and build resilience of the Sahel and Saharan regions. These are parts of the commitment at the just concluded virtual Great Green Wall Summit in France, tagged One Planet Summit for Biodiversity. The virtual One Planet Summit brought together world leaders and partners, as well as leaders of international organizations, financial institutions, and NGOs to make commitment for concrete action to preserve and restore biodiversity and launch transformational initiatives for nature in the region. It was also an opportunity to raise the level of ambition of the international community in protecting nature, while responding to the new questions raised by the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as collectively mobilize resources to build and improve livelihoods in the Sahel through the Great Green Wall Initiative. The Great Green Wall is an African-led movement launched in 2007 by leaders from the Sahelian countries to harness the power of nature and provide policy solutions to multiple and complex environmental threats in the region. I'm now being joined via Zoom by Ibrahim Tho, the United Nations Under-Secretary General on the Certification and Executive Secretary of United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. You're welcome to the studios of NTA International.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what is the Great Green Wall?
Well, it is this vision from Africa that the Sahel region, which is a dry region, should not be suffering too much from land degradation and from biodiversity loss. So 11 countries have come together under the leadership of their heads of states to join forces from the Atlantic Ocean to the Red Sea to combat desertification, to improve livelihoods of their people, and to build resilience for resistance to drought and climate change.
Now, the Great Green Wall is an African initiative. Now, should the world care about this green wall, and why is it so important?
It is important because the primary sector, agriculture, livestock, fisheries, is the first source of income in all these countries. So when the land degrades, as the population grows, you will see more and more conflicts over access to land and water. You will see more risks of irregular migration, and you will see more risks of also insecurity in that region. So it is very important to build the resilience of these communities as much as the resilience of the ecosystems. So the Great Green Wall is not only about trees. It is really about the economy. It is about the livelihoods. It is about the youth, millions of people. It is about women empowerment that are basically leading now their families. So it is extremely important to recognize that 470 million people live in these 11 countries. That population will grow to 1.6 billion people by the end of the century. So it is important to have a longer-term vision so as to avoid more conflicts and more insecurity in that region.
Now, how is Africa going to benefit from this, especially Nigeria?
Nigeria is actually one of the founding fathers. I mean, President Obasanjo was of the founding fathers of the initiative. Nigeria is probably one of the countries which has the longest stretch for the Green Wall. From the Kebbi state to Borno state, 11 states in Nigeria over a distance of 1,300 kilometers are concerned by this program. So it is also one of the regions which basically has the largest population, one of the countries that has the largest population in Africa. So therefore it is important that the youth of these countries, that the women of these countries build their resilience. You mentioned the president of the African Development Bank, Adesina, who was participating to this conference, and the African Development Bank is one of the major players, especially with the provision of energy to these communities. The World Bank, the IFAD, and many other players are contributing to this. Now, why is energy important? Because with energy, you can conserve food. There's a lot of post-harvest loss in the Sahel at the moment. With energy, you can process your food. You can create jobs, value chains. You can improve the economy of that region. The region has a lot of sun. So it is therefore important to harness that sun and to make it a valuable contribution to the transformation of the economy of that region. So whatever you have as vegetables, fruits, milk, fish, meat needs to be conserved. So instead of the sun destroying that food, you can actually harness that sun to conserve it and to transform that, to process it, and to create the additional value chain that is necessary for the youth to stay home and to have a more vibrant economy. It is also important to note that the Great Green Wall is also about agriculture. It is also about livestock. Livestock is very important in the Sahel. So it is a region that has a lot of sun, a lot of land, which actually has a lot of water, underground water, which is not accessible at the moment because of the lack of energy. So with energy, you can really improve that situation.
We thank you very much for those insights, Mr. Ibrahim.
Thank you very much.
That was the Under-Secretary of the United Nations speaking on the Great Green Wall. We'll move on to health matters now. The National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC, says it has not received any application from any COVID-19 vaccine manufacturer, and no vaccines have been approved by the Commission. Director General NAFDAC, Professor Mojishola Adeyeye, said this at a virtual emergency conference. Haman Jabani has the story.
With the approval of some COVID-19 vaccines, there are indications that fake COVID-19 vaccines are already in circulation around the world, Nigeria inclusive. It is in light of this that the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, is asking government establishments and agencies not to order COVID-19 vaccine without confirmation from NAFDAC. The agency says it is discussing with the manufacturers of candidate COVID-19 vaccine concerning potential emergency use authorization, registration or licensing of their product as the case may be, while assuring applicants that if phase 3 clinical data are convincing and robust with regards to safety and efficacy and the vaccines has been submitted for WHO emergency use listing, NAFDAC will welcome the application for emergency use authorization in Nigeria.
Despite the use of reliance for the emergency use authorization, NAFDAC will note clinical peculiarities in form of serious or adverse events following immunization in the dossier that we are reviewing or in the application. This is to serve as a guide and caution for what to look for in each subject after immunization, i.e., during the active pharmacovigilance phase.
The agency says it is collaborating with sister agencies and partners, plans to use traceability with GS1 technology and monitor vaccine distribution while assuring Nigerians that any dossier will be evaluated before being used in Nigeria despite WHO's approval. Hamman Jabani, NTA News.
The U.S. President-elect Joe Biden unveils $1.9 trillion coronavirus stimulus package just as North Korea parades a new missile described as the world's most powerful weapon. Joyce Ometo brings us details of these and more on Global Scene.
U.S. President-elect Joe Biden has unveiled a $1.9 trillion stimulus plan for the coronavirus-sapped economy before he enters office next week.
Tonight, I'll lay out my first step, the American Rescue Plan, that will tackle the pandemic and get direct financial assistance and relief to Americans who need it the most. That means that 18 million Americans currently relying on unemployment benefits, while they look for work, can count on these checks continuing to be there.
Now, in a recent development, Pfizer says it will temporarily reduce COVID-19 vaccine deliveries to Europe while it upgrades its production capacity. The reduction in deliveries is reportedly due to Pfizer limiting output so that it can upgrade production capacity to 2 billion vaccine doses per year. In the meantime, global positive cases have reached 93 million, with total death toll surpassing 2 million. Nigeria now accounts for 105,478 confirmed cases, having recorded 1,479 new cases Thursday. Away from the pandemic, early voting results released Friday by Uganda's Electoral Commission indicates that President Yoweri Museveni took an early lead in the presidential election, but his main rival, Bobi Wine, alleges election fraud. More than 29% of the votes from Thursday's ballot have been counted, and Museveni is in the lead with 61% of the total votes counted. In a show of military strength, North Korea has unveiled a new type of submarine-launched ballistic missile, described as the world's most powerful weapon. The missiles were displayed at a parade supervised by leader Kim Jong-un, ending more than a week of political meetings where Mr. Kim decried the U.S. as his country's biggest enemy. Meanwhile, the Dutch government has resigned amid an escalating scandal over child benefits in which more than 20,000 families were wrongfully accused of fraud by the tax authority. And that's where this segment ends. I am Joyce Ometu.
And global scene also brings us to the end of the news at this time on NTA International. Remember to always connect with NTA and stand against rape and rapists. Be a star. I'm Lami Ali.